Okay, so today we're talking about some important events. So this group, what was your article about over here?
George Washington.
Okay, it was about George Washington. What about George Washington?
He was first president. He led the U.S. Army.
What was the title of your article?
George Washington.
George Washington assigned to lead the Continental Army.
Okay, George Washington is assigned to lead the Continental Army. Okay, so we've talked about a Continental Congress on Friday. Last Friday, we had the first Continental Congress. Who remembers what they talked about in that first Continental Congress? Does anyone remember? First of all, what is a Continental Congress? What's a Continental Congress?
Elected leaders come to talk about stuff and maybe vote for stuff.
Okay, very good. So leaders from where?
The states.
Okay, good. The colonies, right? The 13 colonies. So in the first Continental Congress, they all came together. What were they upset about? Do we remember?
The taxes.
Yeah.
Okay, taxes. Particularly in what city?
Boston.
Boston,
Yeah.
right? Because of what events that went down in
The
Boston?
French.
Boston Tea Party and Boston.
Massacre.
Good. Okay, so some events had been happening in Boston that the colonies were upset about. So they came together. What did they decide in that Continental Congress? What were they going to do?
That they were they're gonna try to see if they can get freedom.
Yeah. I was gonna say Greek.
Okay, they were going to do something specific with Great Britain with their imports and exports. What were they going to do with their imports and exports?
They cut off all transport.
Good. They cut off all of their exports, their imports to Britain, right? They're going to buy anything from Great Britain. They decided in the first Continental Congress, we're not going to buy anything from Great Britain anymore.
What was that called?
Okay? So this was about the second Continental Congress. What did they decide at the second Continental Congress? Who was going to lead the Continental Army?
George Washington.
George Washington. Good. So in the second Continental Congress, all the 13 colonies meet up and they decided, hey, we need a leader for our army. Who's going to be our leader? And they vote overwhelmingly to have George Washington be the leader of the first United States Continental Army.
Boycott.
Okay, so what were some of your questions, Cameron?
What?
Yeah, what's number one?
What was George Washington's new title or position that he was given?
Okay, what was his new position or title, Cameron?
A commander of an army.
His new position was commander of the army. Yep, next.
What previous war experience did George Washington have?
Okay, let me ask someone from the other group. What previous war experience did George Washington have? Yep. No, not none. He had been in a war before.
Oh, was it the French and Indian?
Good, JT. He was a part of in the French and Indian War. All right, Cameron. Yep, next.
What was the difficult part of being a leader in the war for George Washington?
Okay, what was difficult about his experience? Yep.
They're undersupplied.
Okay, undersupplied. Good. Anybody else?
Just being in the war.
Okay. What's number 4?
What does the article say about the training of the Continental Army?
Okay, what did it say?
The Revere.
Poorly trained? Okay. And the last one.
After the war, George Washington was overwhelmingly elected to what role?
Okay, what is it?
As president.
Alright, good. Okay, so their article, the other group, talked about George Washington. Okay, and George Washington, he was first elected leader of the Continental Army, right? So in that second Continental Congress, they get together, they select George Washington to lead the Continental Army. Okay, then it asks what previous war experience did he have, what was difficult about being a leader in the war. That's an important question, okay? The article talked about how he had to leave his wife behind, right? Because he's having to go to war. He wrote about how he was upset that he had to leave his wife and family behind, okay? And that was part of the job that all the founding fathers, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Samuel Adams, John Hancock, some of those significant people from the war, they took on the responsibility of putting their country above their personal needs, because right then they were really fighting for independence and things that were really important to them. So that had to come first, even went over family at sometimes. Like George Washington was upset; he had to leave his wife behind. Okay, you listening, AJ? Okay, did you get that?
No, I was.
In a zone.
He was
Okay.
dreaming about a pickle wave.
All right. So, what was the difficult part about being a leader for George Washington?
I don't know.
Austin.
He had to leave his family behind, and he was, I guess, not prepared.
Good. He had to leave his family behind. Right. He had to put what first?
His country before.
His country. He had to put his country first. Okay. So, keep that in mind. It could show up on the test. This is what was difficult about being a founding father, is that also that often they had to put their country's needs above their personal needs, right? Okay. This group, what was your article about?
Paul Revere.
About Paul Revere. Okay, who was Paul Revere?
Paul Revere was a folk hero, and he was a silversmith, and he was one of the people in the Continental
You
War.
want to beat people?
Okay, good. So, pretty significant figure. What pre-revolutionary act was he a part of?
The Boston Tea Party.
Boston Tea Party. Okay, so Paul Revere was in the Boston area. He was one of the founding fathers. He was a member of this group called the Sons of Liberty. Does anyone know what the Sons of Liberty is?
The Sons.
Okay, Sons of Liberty was kind of like a secret group. You listening?
I like the sign.
Listening?
Wasn't it kind
Sons of Liberty were kind of like a secret group that supported the revolution. They were the leaders in the Boston Tea Party. That group went and dumped the tea into the harbor.
What's that?
Yep, they dressed like Native Americans.
So they could
Okay.
pray on.
So then what significant event was he a part of that helped early on in the revolution? What did he do?
He gave some land to the Native.
What did he do to John Adams or Samuel Adams?
Murder.
Oh, he rode to Lexington to warn John Hancock and Samuel Adams about Lexington, or the approaching British.
Very good. So the British were coming to Lexington. Paul Revere, he rode on his horse ahead of, he beat the army there, rode on his horse and warned them that the British were coming. Had they not known that the British were coming, they wouldn't have been prepared, and they probably would have been defeated, easily defeated.
Yeah.
But he gave them a heads up, and that gave the Americans an advantage. Okay?
Man, phones would have been really useful back then.
No kidding.
Hey, the British is coming.
He's like,
Yeah.
oh, hey,
Yo, use the bird.
hey, Samuel, the British are approaching. Just be ready.
See, what time is it?
All right, there's a couple things from last week I want to touch on to make sure that we got that we understand. Okay, first of all was so when they created the Tea Act, okay, that tax on tea, was it actually pretty expensive? Was it an expensive tax?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, who says yes? Okay, 2. Who says no? Okay, 3. 4. Okay. The correct answer is actually it wasn't expensive.
Oh,
Okay, it actually made tea cheaper. Okay, so why are the colonists going to be upset? Does anyone know?
Because it was 13.
Why, Austin? You know?
No, I was gonna say, why would Boston pick tea when it has a low price? When they pick something that
Like milk.
they know they use a lot and it's
Water.
They use tea a
All
lot.
right, come on. You have a
It's
question?
not expensive.
Bad or something.
Do what?
It probably makes the tea taste bad.
But
Okay. Anyone else have a guess? Brady?
Because the people who were selling the tea, if it made it cheaper, they weren't making
Oh, I
as
know
much.
why.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Because
Yes.
it was all old.
Okay, not exactly. All right, Braden's kind of on the right track. So this is what the deal was. Before, how it worked was the British would bring their tea over, and they would give it to the Americans. Then the Americans would set up their what's called a merchant. Does anyone know what a merchant is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, what's a merchant,
A
JT?
merchant sells or trades or sells stuff.
Good. So they sell and trade. So they would bring the tea to the American merchants, and the merchants would set up their tea, and they would sell their tea in the colonies. Okay. In order to cut the cost of the tea, what the British did was they stopped giving the tea to the merchants. They just sold it directly to the colonists. So they would bring their ships over, park their ships out in the harbor, and you would just go up to that ship and you'd buy your tea straight from the ship, and it was cheaper. But now who's not making any money?
British.
The
Well,
merchants,
they're the ones who just sell
Say
it.
it. Say it.
the merchants
JT.
aren't making money.
The merchants aren't making money. And where are they from?
They're
Boston.
Yeah, Boston, right? They're from Boston. They're American colonists. So the British are benefiting because they're not even going to go through American merchants anymore. They're going straight to the colonists and just selling their tea there. So Americans are going to be upset because a lot of merchants are losing their money. That's how they made a living, how they made a job. And they were just skipping right over them, selling it right to the colonists for cheaper. And so all those merchants are out of a job. They're all out of money, right? So that's why they were all upset about the Tea Act. Does that make sense?
okay.
Yeah.
Okay? I wanted to make sure we hit that because the video talked about it, but I forgot to make sure I reiterated it. Yes,
Why
Cameron?
did they like tea so much?
Tea was just like a new product. Like it'd be like anything like brand new that comes out.
AirPods.
that-
came out.
Yeah, like AirPods or something like that. Okay, but it was just new and popular, so everyone wanted to try it or something like that. Like you guys know, I think was it just a couple years ago? It seems pretty new. That Bang energy drink.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know? So when those came out, a lot of people really liked them and were really drinking those energy drinks and stuff. But it's even more so because we already had other energy drinks before, right? Even before Bang. But in this case, this is the brand new product. Like no one had ever had tea really before. This is a brand
Among
new
Us.
thing.
It's like Among Us. As soon as it got popular, everyone got it.
JT said it's like Among Us. It just comes out, everyone starts to play it, right? Okay, so this is a brand new product. No one had had tea before. It just comes out. That's why it's so popular. Okay? Cool. We're going to watch some short videos